So here I am on the last day of vacation, looking forward to setting some new intentions with my YouTube channel. I've been trying to think about how I can incorporate the drum set into the Sonic Energy Tour. When most people think about meditation, they don't consider a drum set in the mix. But I'm Jeff Holland, Sonic artist, and I've learned how to incorporate drum set into meditation. So throughout my travels, it really began on drum set. As a kid, I was interested in the power that a drum set could play. I remember feeling the rhythm in my chest in front of a bass drum. I remember seeing sticks flying and all of the fast rhythms, and it was the vibration from the drum set that kind of drew me in. And so as I started to explore the drum set, of course I started with a very basic idea, quarter note, or played in certain ways that same rhythm's the polka. This inspired me to learn more about rhythms from around the world. And little did I know what kind of journey that was going to take me on. So I'd like to take you on a musical journey around the drum set. And my challenge to myself, as well as our other drummers out there and my students that are learning, is you develop your style by learning the styles of others. And if we can learn all of these different rhythms from around the world and learn how they were used when what they were traditionally played on, I'd love to show you some of that in upcoming videos. Let me know which ones I need to woodshed on a little bit more, and if you have any questions on particular ones, I'm happy to break them down for you. But I'm just going to kind of go through some of the journey that I've explored. This is no way to exhaust all the rhythms. I have about 10 minutes until our sound curfew kicks in. So that's a good challenge. Let's see how many we can get in the next 10 minutes. So when I think back to the rhythms that inspire these tribal sounds, I have to go to the continent of Africa. But there are so many different styles of rhythms in Africa that you can't sum it up with just a few simple beats like this. You have to think about the regions. The most popular for drumming is, you think about West Africa. A rhythm called cuckoo is a popular fishing rhythm. Kukuwe ni kabora, hey, kukuwe ni kabora, ni barafonterie. You go into the East Africa, and the Swahili rhythms, through Kenya, have this very driving pulse. In Northern Africa, the Arabic rhythms mix in, so you get things like belody. If you displace those two notes, you get Saidi. Split them for Malfouf. And that Kenyan rhythm is actually an ancient rhythm called Ayub. Now, the idea of the bass drums and the toms weren't really what took me to Asia. It was the cymbals, the idea that China started to cast the first bronze, and so that's what later became, for instance, this China sound. Huge gongs that we use in our Sonic Energy Tour. All that inspired me to find these are actually Bosphorus is hand hammered in Turkey. And so it's a more modern approach to how they tune harmonics into gongs. So when I think about taiko of Japan, that's where I really found the power in drumming. Ich, ni, san, su. Then when you start to look into Southeast Asia, you get into the gamelons, where they're actually taking those musical gongs of China and they've turned them into xylophones. I love to play with the melody that we hear around the drum set. You really only need one cymbal, but it's a lot more fun when you have the melody that you can build into it. Let's go back to South Africa. The Mbira always had the thumb piano. You guys know what I'm talking about. You've seen maybe in some of my other videos. Has this beautiful 12/8 fill. And the displacement that they use. Now, let's jump across the ocean and you think about our blues and you think about the idea of that being in 12/8. So much of our rhythms, so many of our rhythms from around the world we can hear inspiring our modern drum set beats. And so think about how these rhythms came together. You have a lot of the, let's go to Europe, back to that very first quarter note rhythm is the polka. But also we have tertiary rhythms or rhythms based in 3. For instance, the classical waltz. Then a lot of the classical instruments, the bass drum, the snare drum, the hand cymbals or crash cymbals, and they started to come together, and really the bass drum pedal and some of the basic hardware is what invented the drum set. So we're using these world rhythms and things like to be creative to cover everything. Think about the Polynesian rhythms, all of the log drums and the slit gongs. I really don't want to play those on the drum heads, but I can also play on the rims. We also found those log drums in all throughout Africa and other parts of the world. So there's this diaspora of percussion that I've traced around, and it was all inspired by the drum set. So let's jump back to, let's go back to the USA for a second and just think about the influence that all of these different rhythms have had. So you take the rhythms of blues and that 12/8 rhythm that we were talking about, and if you start to break that down from a 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12, a blues shuffle, which also inspired simple the basic country rhythms. And then the modern country rhythms, which just became rock and roll. So we take these rock and roll rhythms and we start to phrase them different. And we notice that bass idea comes from Brazil, or the bossa nova. or speed it up for the rhythms of samba. Then you have all of these influences that came in through jazz, starting with the big band ideas. So you had some of the military drumming that was just based around rudiments. So they took that idea and they started to apply it to all of these new instrument combinations on the trap set. Then you started to hear these rhythms coming back in. New Orleans, the melting pot that created the combination of jazz and blues, the African, the European instruments all coming together. Think about the classical snare drum, how that was played at one point. And that influenced the idea of second line. But going back to pulling those rhythms from Africa, then putting those rudiments over the top, and that's what really created our evolution of jazz, and then eventually into rock and pop music. Now, there's a lot of theories that I have about how some of the new music developed. Some I've traced back the feeling of griots in West Africa telling stories, and what later became the push-pull, these tension beats that they would add behind the poetry. I think had a lot to do with the feel of early rap. So you had this and then later on, hip-hop gave it even more of a tension by switching to the shuffle pattern on the hi-hat, which ironically is the same as the country beat. But hip-hop breaks it down and adds that tension on the bass drum. So a lot of the different styles started to come together. Sometimes they straightened out. You know, you get the disco beats, which is essentially what our house and techno are. And I love the sounds of the Caribbean. So in the Caribbean, you really had this merging and this melting of rhythms that combined Africa, Europe, and these indigenous cultures that from the Native Americans, you could trace the heartbeat rhythms for the Native American powwows all around the world. And they have this unique combination that they're usually in a very organic feel. 90 beats per minute or so. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you fill it in. But you could trace that heartbeat to so many different cultures. We just know it's the most important rhythm of life. And you hear that in so much of the music. Why is our pop music somewhere between 80 beats per minute and 160 beats per minute? It kind of matches with our heart rate. So when you're thinking about playing, you know, I tell people all the time, feel what you play what you feel. If you're smiling, you're doing it the right way. That's something that I love to say. So I came into drum set actually through the way of gospel. I fly away, oh glory, I'll fly away, no more that influence really kind of influenced a lot of the modern pop, very strong drumming, not necessarily upbeat and up tempo that fast. But going back to the Caribbean, a lot of those faster rhythms are felt in cut time. And so you have rhythms that, let's say we start with clave and cascara. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Or even a simpler version of that was mambo. Simpler version would be dos, 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 cha cha cha. So I love exploring these rhythms, and just when you think you've got all that area has to offer, something comes up new. And so I love the paths that open up. It's like you open a doorway and then all of a sudden there's a cave with hundreds of different rhythms, rhythm opportunities to take you on different adventures. Changuito Sango came from these early Cuban rhythms. And it was really invented to play on the drum set. Changuito used a bass drum on the timbales and with the bell parts, and just started to add So as these rhythms develop, I started to study a little bit deeper. What are the rhythms that weren't really made for drum set? Things like wah-wah-ko. Mozambique. All of these different Cuban rhythms that were based on rumba. So just by taking clave from 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. Change the third note, wait one more eighth note to the and of 4. 1, 2, and 3, 4, and 1, 2, 3. Pop, 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 pop. And that little rhythm change inspired a whole new web of rhythms. So if that gives you a little bit of insight, I know there's things that I had on my list that I didn't cover. I figure you guys knew how to play tango. Most of my students come to me and they just want to rock. And I like to rock out too. So I've been having a great time noodling around on the drum set, just kind of figuring out my new intentions for 2021. And with the YouTube channel, I've really had a hard time getting past this block of, all right, I started as a drum set player and then I moved out into all of these other fields. Drum for Work is the corporate evolution of that, and the educational arts integration programs that I developed through that work great in the schools, basically taking math, science, social studies, language arts, and of course all of the other arts, and putting them together into these ideas. There's really not much that I found that I can't teach using my love of percussion and how I can share that with others. So with the YouTube channel, my biggest challenge, the wall that I've been trying to climb for the last year, was how do I share it? And I've tried to upgrade all of our technology and get better at editing. That's just going to come in time. And so my intention for 2021 is just to share as much as I can. There has to be somebody that needs what I have to give. And my students have benefit from it. And I just thought that now's a great time to start to put some of my ideas out. I want to create conversations in our world, and I want us to learn from each other. So it's not all about me teaching. I do offer private lessons, and I'm a little rusty on drum set, but I teach on so many other different instruments that I'm sure I could find something to help you with. Maybe it's just help making the connection of how these world rhythms can be used in your style of playing already. With every new technique that you add, you're going to open that door into a wealth of new opportunity, and who knows where it'll take you. We hardly ever venture the same path through life, but if we're on a similar or even a parallel path and I can help you out, let me know. I'd love to do that. Stay tuned. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. It's Jeff Holland, Sonic Artist. I'm drum4work.com or patreon.com/drumforwork. I appreciate your support. Let's keep the rhythms going together. Thank you.